Chapter 2. The Road of Names, Part 1. The blood from the golden-eyed man's hand was still on my tongue when the first rifle shot came after us. The bullet struck the road behind the cart, and dust burst through the opening in the canvas. The mules screamed and pulled harder. Marisol dragged me down beside her before the second shot came. Mateo had both hands pressed over his ears. The boy with the scar watched the opening at the back of the cart without blinking. The golden-eyed man climbed in after me. His wounded hand left a dark mark against the canvas as he pulled it closed. The daylight disappeared, leaving only thin lines of mourning around the seams. "Stay down." I tried to get past him. He caught the front of my shirt and pushed me against the wooden floor. Not violently. Violence would have been easier to understand. He handled me with the calm of a man returning a tool to its proper drawer. "Let me go." Another rifle fired. The shot tore through the canvas above us, and the children screamed. The golden-eyed man did not even turn his head. He reached forward and struck the front wall of the cart twice with the side of his fist. The driver answered by pulling sharply on the reins. The cart turned so hard that all of us slid against one wall. Marisol struck her shoulder. Mateo rolled beneath the bench. The wooden wheels left the main road and dropped into a wash half filled by the night's rain. Branches clawed across the canvas. Mud struck the underside of the cart. The mules fought the harness as we descended between thick trees and high banks of wet earth. Behind us, the soldiers continued along the road. At first, I could still hear them. Hooves, shouting. One man calling for the others to spread out. Then the sounds passed beyond us, and only water remained. Water moving through stone. The mules breathing. Children trying not to cry. The cart stopped beneath the trees. No one moved. The golden-eyed man crouched near the rear opening, listening. Blood ran from the bite in his hand and disappeared beneath his glove. He looked at it, then at me. I expected anger. Instead, the corner of his mouth lifted. "There he is." He hated that smile. I hated him for treating my fear like proof of character. I looked toward the thin line of light beneath the canvas. The soldier had seen me. I knew he had. For one heartbeat, we had looked directly at one another. He was coming for me. The golden-eyed man began tightening the glove around his injured hand. The soldier, he saw me. One of them looked in your direction. He saw me. He studied me. Outside, the driver climbed down and checked the wheels, while the old woman with the keys spoke to him in a low voice. The golden-eyed man leaned closer. People see what they are prepared to understand. He would have helped. Perhaps. The answer came too easily. Or perhaps he would have delivered you to the first priest wearing a cleaner collar. I hated him for saying it. I hated him more because I did not know whether he was lying. Marisol pulled Mateo closer. She looked at the golden-eyed man, but spoke to me. "Don't make him angry. He isn't angry." That was what frightened me. The golden-eyed man frightened me most when he was calm. Rage gives warning. Patience does not. I looked around the cart. Marisol, Mateo, the boy with the scar, several other children pressed beneath blankets in rough sacks. Some I remembered from the corridor. Others I had only seen while we were being pushed through the hidden passage. I counted them, then counted again. One was missing. The younger child who had slept beside the drainage wall beneath the church. The one who whistled through his nose while he slept. Where is he? Marisol lowered her eyes. The golden-eyed man did not ask who I meant. Lost during the search. Lost where? He gave no answer. Did the soldiers take him? Possibly. Is he alive? The golden-eyed man tilted his head. That depends on who found him. He lunged. He caught me by the throat and held me against the side of the cart. Not hard enough to crush, only hard enough to remind me that he could. His face came close to mine. The white hat cast a shadow over his eyes, but the gold remained visible beneath it. You are alive, Luciano. Do not make the mistake of believing that means you are safe. He released me. I dropped beside Marisol, coughing. The golden-eyed man adjusted his coat as though nothing had happened. A thin blade of morning entered through the bullet hole above his shoulder and touched the leather near his hand. He moved away from it quickly. That was the first time I truly noticed. Not what he was. Not yet. Only that the growing light disturbed him more than the rifles had. He reached up and folded part of the canvas over the hole. The cart became dark again. Outside, the driver climbed back into his seat. The old woman settled beside him, and the cart began moving slowly through the wash. For some time, no one spoke. Marisol counted beneath her breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mateo lowered one hand from his ear. Not both. I looked at the golden-eyed man. Where are you taking us? To shelter. You're lying. Yes. The answer silenced me. He leaned back against the wall of the cart. But it is a useful lie. What do you want from me? For the first time, he did not answer immediately. The wheels turned beneath us. Water dripped from the branches onto the roof. The other children watched him without appearing to. At present, I want you to arrive. The Empire had died 2 days earlier, but its corpse was still traveling through every mouth in Mexico. I did not understand those words then. I understand them now. Emperors die once in flesh, and 1,000 times in conversation. By the time our cart returned to the road, men were already arguing over Maximiliano's final words. The placement of the rifles, the condition of his clothing, and whether he had stood proudly when the bullets found him. The old woman raised the canvas slightly as we entered the first village. Not enough for us to be clearly seen. Enough for air. Enough for voices. They displayed him. They say his eyes were still open. That is a lie. My cousin saw the body. Your cousin has never been farther than Celaya. Laughter followed. Then another voice, older and quieter. They are preserving him for Austria. The laughter stopped. For Austria? Even dead, Europe wants its property returned. The golden-eyed man smiled in the darkness. I watched him. What? He looked toward the village beyond the canvas. Nothing changes. He adjusted the golden chain across his vest. Only the paperwork. Through a narrow gap, I saw pieces of the country passing by. Wet adobe walls, a woman sweeping mud away from her doorway. Republican colors hanging above a municipal building. A priest removing an old imperial emblem from the front of his chapel before soldiers arrived to ask why it had remained there. Everywhere, people were choosing which memories to preserve and which loyalties to deny. The empire had fallen. By noon, half the men who had served it would claim they never had. That was another thing I learned later. History does not always bury its accomplices. Sometimes it allows them to change codes. We reached the Republican checkpoint before the clouds had completely released the sun. The cart slowed, and the golden-eyed man became still, not afraid, prepared. He moved toward the darkest corner and lowered the brim of his hat. The old woman pulled the canvas tightly over the rear opening. Boots approached outside. A fist struck the side of the cart. "Inspection." The driver answered too quietly for us to hear. The fist struck again. "Open it." The old woman climbed down. "What are you transporting?" the soldier asked. "Children." There was a pause. "What children?" "Orphans." "From where?" "The parish outside Querétaro." The soldier lowered his voice. "The one searched this morning?" "The same." "What are you doing with them?" "Moving them before the fighting returns." Another soldier approached. "Papers?" The old woman produced something from beneath her shawl. Paper unfolded. A seal was examined. The men outside whispered to one another. Inside the cart, Mateo began breathing too quickly. Marisol placed one hand over his mouth and the other against his chest. The boy with the scar stared at the canvas. The golden-eyed man placed one finger against his lips. The canvas lifted. Daylight entered. Not fully. A narrow opening. Still enough to make the golden-eyed man turn his face away. A young Republican soldier looked inside. Mud covered his boots to the knees. His rifle rested against one shoulder. His eyes traveled over the children. Marisol, Mateo, the scarred boy, then me. He frowned. "Why is that one bruised?" The old woman looked at me as though she had only just remembered I existed. "He ran during the evacuation. From soldiers. From everyone." The soldier leaned closer. I recognized nothing about him. He was not the man from the ridge, but he was a soldier. He had a rifle. He had eyes. He had a mouth that might carry my name to someone who cared. This was my chance. Again. The words rose into my throat. "Help me." Before I could speak, the golden-eyed man's hand settled over mine beneath the blanket. To the soldier, it might have looked comforting. I felt his thumb press against the bones in my fingers. Not enough to break them, enough to promise it. The soldier looked at me. "What is your name, mijo?" The golden-eyed man's grip tightened. I opened my mouth. From farther up the road, someone shouted. A second cart had been found, carrying rifles beneath sacks of maize. Men began running. The soldier turned toward the commotion. "Remain here." He dropped the canvas and stepped away. The old woman climbed back onto the front bench. Our driver moved before the soldier returned. The cart rolled through the checkpoint. Darkness settled around us again. I stared at the golden-eyed man. "You were going to tell him?" "Yes." "Good." I did not understand. He released my hand. Fear without resistance becomes obedience. He glanced towards the canvas behind us. Obedience is useful. Then he looked at me, but terribly down. You would have killed him. No. You would have killed me. No. Then why stop me? Because he was not going to save you. How do you know? The golden-eyed man leaned back, because he had already decided what he was looking at. Children. Orphans. We aren't orphans. The word came out before I could stop it. The cart became silent. My father's body waited in the center of the burning house. My mother's screams remained inside the walls. I knew what had happened. Still, saying the word felt like helping them disappear. The golden-eyed man watched me. His voice softened, not kindly, simply lower. You are now. I turned away from him. For the rest of the afternoon, I tried to remember every turn. Left at the stone marker. Right after the narrow bridge. Past the field where 3 dead horses had been dragged beside the road. Through a village with a cracked bell. Down a road lined with mesquite and low walls. But exhaustion turned the route into pieces. I would remember one hill and forget the next. One chapel, one flooded field, one woman standing beside the road with a basket against her hip. By the time we reached the Paseo, I no longer knew whether we had traveled 10 miles or 100. The Mesón stood near the edge of town, behind a weathered sign painted with a broken bell. El Mesón de la Campana Rota. Travelers crowded the front room. Mule drivers drank beneath the awning. A cook shouted for someone to bring more wood. 2 Republican soldiers argued with an old man over whether Maximiliano had deserved a priest at the end. No one paid attention to our cart. That was the purpose of places like the Mesón. Everybody arrived carrying something they did not want inspected too closely. The cart did not stop at the front entrance. It passed through a side gate into a narrow courtyard surrounded by stables, storage rooms, and upper balconies. The gate closed behind us. The golden-eyed man waited until the cart entered the deepest shade before lifting the canvas. He stepped down. His movements became easier once the daylight no longer touched him. I noticed that too. The old woman with the keys climbed from the front bench. Another woman waited near the stable entrance. She wore plain brown clothing, with gray hair tied beneath a dark scarf. She did not look surprised by the children. She did not ask what had happened at the church. She did not ask why soldiers had pursued us. She looked at the old woman. How many? One was lost. The woman's expression did not change. Taken? Perhaps. Killed? Perhaps. She looked toward the cart. Then the count changes. That was all. No prayer. No question about the missing child. No name. A life removed with a sentence. The woman began studying the children as we climbed down. Marisol, Mateo, the boy with the scar, the others, then me. Her eyes stopped. The golden-eyed man removed his injured glove 1 finger at a time. The bite had already disappeared. The woman looked at him. This one caused the delay. He noticed too much. She stepped closer to me. I had never seen her before. I had never heard her voice. She had never entered my home. She had not been beneath the church. Still, she said my name without asking. Luciano Ballesteros. The golden-eyed man's hand settled on my shoulder. His fingers tightened slightly. The woman turned toward the stable. "Bring them inside," she paused. "The room is prepared." That was when I understood. The soldiers had broken through the church. Priests had fled. Doors had shattered. Children had scattered through tunnels and smoke. But none of it had destroyed the plan. The road had already been waiting for us. The Mesón had been waiting. The woman had been waiting. And somewhere inside that building, before I had ever arrived, someone had already written down my name.